some of you, this is the first introduction to Samuel Adams Returns. And for many others that are returning to garner more from Mr. Adams, a heartfelt thank you. This is an introduction to your question, why now? Not unlike the time of the founding of these United States, the nation is in dire need of the firebrand of the Revolution. The problem that the founders, especially Samuel Adams, predicted would happen to the nation if the national government became overly centralized. It has been happening for the last 100 years and is greatly upon us now. Samuel Adams, and the Anti-Federalists in particular, feared that the federal government would subsume the individual states. Thereby, the states would lose their perspective of self-governance and sovereign rights. This would mean that the citizenry would lose their sovereignty as well. Through designing men and women over the last century, meaning men and women with agendas other than original intent, the founders' concerns have come to full fruition today. Samuel Adams not only led the intellectual arguments for liberty, but was able to stimulate the passions of the patriots for liberty through the pursuit of individual rights and the rights of the states. Samuel Adams returns to bring his actual words to the present regarding all the relevant issues. Ecclesiastes 1:9 says, "There's nothing new under the sun." Through intense study of the life and documents of Samuel Adams, I developed his alter ego through modernizing his writings and presenting his speeches for today's grassroots gatherings, educational groups, and you, the citizenry. Few realize that the founding fathers were well aware of every issue of life: morality, government, economics, culture, and business issue. The real-life portrayal of Samuel Adams causes citizens of the modern era to hear from the forgotten patriot and see him speaking his own words and life experiences in a way that will resonate and captivate each participant, no matter what their age. Throughout the ages, we continually see severe partisan strife, yet political factions are just as polarizing today as they were in 1765 through the Revolutionary period between the Loyalist Tories and the colonial patriots, and then again in 1787 through the time of ratification, with the difference being the Federalist position from that of the Anti-Federalist. Even greater is the separation in the 21st century with the Democratic and Fabian Socialist, the interventionist, and other anti-constitutional groups positioned contrary to the so-called conservatives and absolutely contrary to the true foundational constitutionalist. As with the turn of the 18th century to the 19th century, the 21st century brings us to the defining lines of what form of government will prevail. In all cases, Samuel Adams would stand for the historical perspective of individual liberty and states' rights. In these DVD presentations, we will discuss the influence Mr. Adams brought to the substance of self-governance in America. Mr. Adams wrote and argued about the liberty, natural rights, and property rights, as well as religion and education. Even more so, why now? Unfortunately, in our time, most politicians have not fully read, let alone studied, the Constitution. The disheartening truth is that a fifth grader in 1828 knew more about the Constitution than the present leadership in the modern political parties and members actually serving in Congress. The purpose of this DVD series is to educate you, the citizenry, the political leadership, and to help develop statesmen and women according to our founders' first principles of life and self-governance. Samuel Adams returns to reignite the fires of liberty with first source truths. That means straight out of the founder's mouth. In many instances, Mr. Adams will read you his letters or speeches as he did in his time. These will be somewhat modernized and sometimes with commentary relevant for the present concerns. Mr. Adams said, It does not require a majority to prevail, but rather an irate, tireless minority keen to set the brush fires in people's minds. Again he commented, let divines and philosophers, statesmen and patriots unite their endeavors to renovate the age, impressing the minds of men with the importance of educating their little boys and girls, of inculcating in the minds of the youth the fear and love of the deity and universal philanthropy, and, in subordination to these great principles, the love of their country, of instructing them in the art of self-governance, without which they can never act as a wise part of government of societies, great or small, of leading them in the study and practice of the exalted virtues of the Christian system. Lastly, for now, a general disintegration of principles and manners will more surely overthrow the liberties of America than the whole force of the common enemy. While people are virtuous, they cannot be subdued. But when once they lose their virtue, then they will be ready to surrender their liberties to the first external or internal invader. And now, Samuel Adams returns.